Okay, so now on to the last part of this video before we actually get into installing some of the home automation software. You're going to want to make a backup in case you mess something up. So if everything's working up to this point just perfect the way you want it, you will want to make a backup. So at this point, what you'll want to do is you want to shut down your Raspberry Pi, just unplug it, and then pull the card out of it. And then after you pull out the card out of it, if you've got a adapter, you can use an adapter and some kind of reading device so that your computer can get it. Now I'll go get the card. Do make sure that you unplug the Raspberry Pi before you take the card out. So again, face up. Now you're going to come up with this that says, do you want to scan the fixed boot? Just no, just cancel it out. And cancel autoplay out if you get that. You want to use the program Win32DiskImager, which you used earlier to put the image onto the disk, to also make a copy of it. Okay, so at this point, we're going to give it a file name, and we're just going to call it S backup. SCRAT. I probably spelled it wrong. And we want to make sure that it's K, that we got the correct drive. That's the only thing that I've got plugged in there. So that's got to be the right one, I'm guessing, and I'm hoping. And now we will go ahead and hit read. Make sure you hit read. Don't hit write. Hit read. Now it'll go through this. Now this DiskImager looks a little bit different than the version that we originally put on the micro SD card, only because this is an older version of the program. And we're working from my desktop now. I noticed that on my very first video, there was a horrendous beep. And so I installed the software on my desktop to do this. And of course I found out I still had a beep. So I know it's somewhere. I made a mistake. I forgot something here. Something that you might forget too. You have to put the extension in here. Otherwise, it'll just have it under as a file. So we'll hit exit. So I'm guessing it probably put it in our downloads. So we'll check our downloads. And yep, there it is. And it just reads it as a file, which we do not want. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that. And then we'll restart it. .img. Don't forget that .img. You would think I wouldn't forget that because I even back up at this point. Don't forget the .img extension. You'd think I would have remembered that, but of course I didn't. So remember that .img. Now hit the read, and it'll start backing this up. So if something goes goofy with your Pi, you can just unplug it and bring it back to your computer. Use SD formatter to format the card again. Now with SD formatter, something you need to keep in mind, and for some reason I've noticed that when you back up the image, it backs up every part of the micro SD card. So if your micro SD card is a 64 gigabyte, your file is going to be pretty close to that. And if you go to put that on a 32 megabyte or I'm sorry, gigabyte. If you start out with a 64 gigabyte micro disk and you back it up, it's going to back up the whole disk. And so then if you try to put it on a 32 gigabyte disk, it'll tell you there's not enough room on the disk. And I'm guessing that if you started out with a 32 gigabyte disk and you put it, you back it up and you put it on a 64 gigabyte disk, it's going to copy that, and your Raspberry Pi is, I believe that this is the way it works. Your Raspberry Pi is going to think that it's a 32 gigabyte disk instead of a 64 gigabyte disk in there, and you won't get full use of your micro SD card. So when you back it up, you could probably put it on, no problem, put it on another card. You can do that, but I would stick with the same size card. Or if you go with a larger card, just realize that you're probably not going to have access to half of the size of that card. And another thing you want to do is when you select the drive, you also want to turn adjustment on so that when it formats the whole micro SD card, not just what the SD card says. So you want to format size adjustment, you want to turn that on. And then once you do that, of course you press format. But we can't do that right now because it's actually being used for something else right now. And this version does look different than the version that I was using on my laptop. I'll have to double check that, and maybe this doesn't do these kind of cards. I'll double check that, but so that is that. So while this is backing up, we will just I'll just fast forward through this part of the video, and then we'll come back to the image file, the backup image file, and the process of getting that back onto a micro SD card if something should happen to that. Okay, until then. Okay, now that it's done, we can go ahead and exit it. And we can check to make sure that it backed it up. There it is, backed it up. Now, again, I'm not sure why it says drives not supported, because I did use the same version 4.0, to format it the first time. So I'm going to see if that's okay. That was because the disk was actually being used at the time, so that's why it said it wouldn't format it. I thought it might be because of the adapter that I used, but it's not. Now, this is actually a 64 gigabyte micro disk. Why it's reading it as a 41.8, I'm not exactly sure. Well, that was odd. Just kicked on and off. Okay, well, really shouldn't have to worry about it too much. I'll just unplug it and then plug it back in again. Of course, we'll hit no. Okay, so if we wanted to put this back on again, if there was a problem with it, we hit SD formatter again, 41.8. So we'd format it, click Format, and then we'd use Win32DiskImager. We would select the backup file that we just made, and then we would hit write, and then it would write over the disk. And you just want to make sure you format the disk and then use the backup image, and you should be good to go. You can reinsert the micro SD card back into the Raspberry Pi and plug the Pi back in and let it boot up, and you should be back to, if it backed up right, you should be back to where you backed it up. So this is a good thing to use if you for some reason have messed up the configuration of your Raspberry Pi, or if the micro SD card for some reason goes haywire and is no longer any good. You can just try to buy another micro SD card of the same size, and go ahead and put the image file on it and put it back in your Pi, and you should be up and running. Makes it a lot easier than having to do all the work all over again. I like to make a backup of everything up until the point where I know it's working, and then if I do a little bit more work to it and I notice everything's working, I'll go ahead and make another backup of it and get rid of the older backup and keep the newer one. Or you could keep two backups that way, and you can always look at the date so that you know when they were made. And then you can, if you decide that the last one isn't what you want, you can go back. So I like to make a backup of everything without any of the home automation on, but the Raspberry Pi is ready to go for putting stuff on it. So I think that is all that I have for this video right now, and so we will go ahead and conclude this video. This will be the fourth part, and when I get ready, I'll make the fifth part, and we'll actually get into the home automation aspect of the Raspberry Pi. So until then, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Hope to see you in the next part. Well, I won't see you, but I hope you see me in part 4. That would be part 5. Thank you.